really getting worse if we see the rating downgrade happen? What should the government do to really avoid that situation?
Well, I think a downgrade is a very realistic possibility. It will be the straw that sort of breaks the camel's back. There are a couple of things. I think, the actual fiscal deficit number, I believe, is less important. If growth were to slow much below what was budgeted, or you have to increase your NREGA payments because you've got a drought-like situation in some parts of the country, those are what's called automatic stabilizers. Ratings agencies will see through that. What they really want is some fiscal intent to reduce India's structural fiscal deficit. I'll just give you one statistic. India's primary deficit has worsened by 5% of GDP over the last 4 years. That's exactly how much corporate private investment has fallen, which for me is sort of the most damning evidence of crowding out. So I think what we have to see in the next 6 months is some credible efforts to reduce India's structural deficit. If we don't, I'm afraid we will lose our investment grade status. And let's be clear, that won't affect the government in any meaningful way. But what it will do is have a very negative impact on the corporate sector. Total external commercial borrowings today from India, the outstanding stock, is over $100 billion. Last year, we had to repay 25 billion of that. So if refinancing costs go up very sharply in the offshore market, a lot of this borrowing comes onshore, then, we've spoken about implementation issues being a constraint. Believe me, if you have a downgrade, then financial constraints will bind just as much as any implementation issue. So I think the first order of business of the central government has to do what it takes to avoid a ratings downgrade.
Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, the finance minister, maybe the darling of corporate India, a lot of optimism really riding, saying that there is hope building up. But many have actually stated he does not have a magic wand. When it comes to the political leadership actually trying to reverse the slowdown, which side of the debate are you on? Would you rather let them go ahead, bite the bullet, take those tough political decisions that will turn around the sentiment, as Dr. Rajiv Kumar was saying, or simply go in for the low-hanging fruit? Because there is a fear that if you go in for those tough political decisions, you're going to see another deadlock, another stalemate, and us not moving forward at all.
I think we can't do one or the other. I think we have to make sure that we look at all possible options. I don't think we have the luxury of doing things in bits and pieces or in a fragmented way. This is a time when we have to look at all options, all sectors, whether it's investor sentiments, whether it is real business growth, whether it is investing in our infrastructure, whether it is about the approvals process, whether it is lowering interest rates. I mean, you've just got to look at everything. You've got to bite the bullet when you have to, and you've got to make the tough choices and aim for the low-hanging fruits where you have to. So I personally believe Mr. Chidambaram will have to look at all these options, and I'm sure he will. And we also have a new chief economic advisor, and Dr. Raghuraman, I'm sure, will also help with the process. I think everybody knows what the challenges are. I think it's staring us in the face, and it's important. If we don't act, well, the game's up.
And a part of it is obviously bureaucratic decision making, as we were talking about earlier. The kind of fear that we're seeing within the bureaucracy, largely due to the kind of CAG reports, the scams that seem to be do you think that there is a perceptible change now in the mindset of bureaucrats, where they simply do not want to sign files? There was somebody who was saying that all that bureaucrats now do is sign and pass on the files. Nothing moves really. No decisions are taken. What is needed to change that mindset? And I can hear Kiran Shaw actually agreeing with that view.
There are two things I'd like to comment on. One, CAG's reports are not very different from what they were in the past. For 37 years I've read CAG's reports. It's just that all of us have started reading, especially the press, and started reacting. Probably the Commonwealth Games set the pattern, and we started looking at it. And I think,
or the headline-making numbers of the losses?
Yeah, basically sensation, scandal, that sort of drives us to do all this. But I'm not so worried about that. I'd like to take the point that Rajiv has made and Mr. Chinna has repeated. The question is, will India, and I mean the government, and here I mean the political leadership, bite the bullet before the downgrade or after the downgrade?
So you're saying a downgrade is imminent?
We have had a history of taking decisions only when we are pushed to the bottom of the pit. And we are not very far from the bottom of the pit. It's That's my assessment after 12 consecutive quarters of declining trends in growth. So let's see. I still think we will bite the bullet before the downgrade.
Okay.
But that's optimism.
So, you know, the other issue is, let's not forget that the last time we bit the bullet, 20 years ago, was after the elections.
Right.
So there's also the additional uncertainty of elections, and you know, which also have to be factored in. And I would bet that, unfortunately, notwithstanding everybody's good intentions, that we probably will not see a huge amount of change between now and the
And
elections.
2014.
Yeah,
So
and
probably what Dr. Kaushik Basu said and later said, he was misquoted, that, you know, there will be no reforms till 2014 is something that we now seem to be accepting.
I think so, and I think it's probably just better for all of us to accept that fact, as I said earlier. And, you know, because the thing is, you know, the things that need to be done are so apparent. Everybody's been talking about it for the longest time. Nothing seems to get done. You know, we've had number of changes at the finance ministry. We've, you know, got changed the CA as well. I think the window is not short. If in the next 1 month nothing happens, then I would suggest that we should all just give up and go home.
Advocate here.
Yes, please do.
What makes us think we'll get reform after 14?
No,
Okay.
there's no guarantee.
If you have a third
I'm
front,
saying
There is,
Very
there is
least,
one point here, which is that this time biting the bullet could also be seen as an electorally superior strategy. If you just give up, you know, the impending election, the 3 state elections, Gujarat.
But how can raising diesel prices be seen
I
as
tell you
this?
why. Just simply because if you do all of that, and the fiscal deficit comes, you know, gets good, and
But
if the
it's
growth,
politically very difficult to explain, Dr. Kumar. You and I understand it, but the masses don't.
no, not the masses.
The politicians.
No, the politicians
Okay,
have to
okay.
understand that if they get growth going back again at the beginning of 2013, they will have 1.5 years of rising growth when they go into the hustings in 2014. If they don't do that now, they will be on a declining trend or on a stagnating trend, which is the worst environment in which to go to the polls. That is why the electoral strategy and the economic
But
strategy could
inflation is
converge.
such a touchy issue, Dr. Kumar. At a time when you're seeing such high inflation levels, who's going to really say that, okay, it's all very well to raise diesel prices? That will be a politically tough one to push
Rise
through.
only causes once off inflation. After that, with the reduction in deficit and the bringing down of the interest rates, the inflation will begin to taper down. So this is pretty much like a silver bullet at this time.
Rajiv, the fact is, before the last budget presentation, right, we were all having exactly the same conversation. And we were just 6 months earlier in the game, right?
Right.
And look at the budget that we
We're
got.
deeper in the pit.
Right? Now we're even deeper in the pit. It's harder to crawl out of it. Time is shorter. At some point, it's quite conceivable that the government just takes the point of view that, look, just getting out of it in the legitimate way, which you're advocating, is no longer possible. So really, who gives a damn? Just carry on with the way we're going and just keep, double up and rega or whatever it might be, and then take your chances. And
Because it is a political
post
gamble
14, we
also.
may or may not be there. How does it matter?
It is a political game.
Yeah.
It is a political gamble, but as all our panelists here are saying, we are deeper in the pit, and it will be very, very difficult to crawl out of it. So will we manage to crawl out of it, or will we go even deeper into that pit? Remains the million-dollar question on which we're going to end We Mean Business tonight. Thanks very much, all of you, for joining us and sharing your views. We'll have to wait and see whether the government acts to reverse this slowdown process or not. Remember, you, the viewer, can also send us your feedback on the show. The details there coming up on your screen. You can send us an email at wmb@ndtv.com, send us an SMS at WMB space your message at 56388, or send me write to me on my Twitter handle at ShwetaRK NDTV. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.